At Rancho Alvarado's gate, Foreman Frank Castillo pocketed $5 crumpled dollars as if they were thousands.
For the boss's champion stallion, $5 is fair, Frank said, and he meant it like a knife.
The bay thoroughbred, Valiente, a $90,000 animal, stood gleaming under the boy's bare hands. Leon Cruz, 11 and barefoot, pressed 5 wrinkled singles into Frank's palm.
"You can't sell him for $5. Robert Vance shouted, his face turning crimson.
The boss said liquidate. I'm liquidating.
Frank took the boy's money without checking the horse's teeth. He signed the ledger with a flourish. The boy led the stallion away, bare feet silent in the dirt. For half a breath, the boy's jawline stirred a memory Frank couldn't place. He dismissed it. Frank pocketed the 5, smirked at the stunned buyers, and watched the boy disappear into the heat haze. 3 hours before the boy handed over his $5, Frank had opened the letter that gave him his revenge. By authority of Eduardo Alvarado, you may liquidate any horse you deem low-performing. The words tasted like power.
They gave the promotion to the boss's nephew, a boy who couldn't saddle a pony, and handed me the axe. He grabbed the phone. "Mr. Vance, it's Frank. Get here this afternoon. I've got a horse you'll want to see. Meet me at the front gate." He called again. "Grant, drop by 2 o'clock. There's a tall bay stallion that'll put your current string to shame."
When he hung up, he drew a red circle around the nephew's photo, a bullseye on the boss's pride.
"Valiente won't ever run for Eduardo again. He'll carry some barefoot fool for $5 lousy dollars."
Valiente stood in his stall, a living sculpture of muscle and breeding, oblivious to the plot curling around him. By mid-afternoon, Frank leaned at the gate, a smirk already pulling at his lips. The 2 buyers stood behind him, furrowing their brows at the empty road.
"Anyone with $5 will do. It don't matter who walks up. It only matters that it's not Eduardo."
Inside the adobe, morning light fought through a dusty window, and Elena Cruz spoke of the son she'd lost long ago.
Your father's name was Francisco. He worked horses somewhere near here. He left before you were born. You got his stubborn jaw, though.
He'd heard this 100 times. Today, he needed air, not old ghosts.
He had saved $5 from selling leather bracelets to tourists in town, and now he laid the crumpled bills out on the table.
Maybe if I see the horses up close, I'll understand why my father loved them.
He kissed his grandmother's cheek, tucked the money into his torn pocket, and stepped into the punishing sun.
Walk toward the ranch. Find a horse. Maybe a piece of my father will still be there.
An hour later, the shimmering heat revealed the iron gates of Rancho Alvarado. Through the bars, a tall bay stallion stood like a bronze statue.
His heart hammered. This was it. He had $5. Maybe that could buy a minute with a horse.
As the boy neared the gate, Frank's eyes dropped to the crumpled bills in that small fist. A laugh caught in his throat.
"Hey, boy, you want a horse? That bay there? $5.
$5, the exact number. It was like the horse had been waiting for him.
The exchange was over in seconds. Frank pocketed the money, grabbed the ledger, and signed it with a celebratory slash. Robert Vance lunged forward, but Frank's palm shot up. "The little man's got a deal. Go on, boy, take him."
He'd never felt so tall. The lead rope was lightning in his hands.
Frank's smirk held as the boy shrank into the heat. Then it twitched. The line of that small jaw hooked something deep.
Ridiculous. A barefoot street kid. He shook the ghost off and turned. He faced Robert and Samuel. "Good day's work. Unless you are buying another horse, the gate's that way."
The buyers stormed off. Frank stood alone, the $5 bill suddenly heavier in his pocket than a $90,000 stallion. A week later, Eduardo Alvarado's black SUV rolled through the gate, and the silence on the ranch told him something was wrong.
He walked straight to the stable. The stall was stripped clean, the nameplate still gleaming Valiente. "Where is my horse?"
Frank appeared, thumbs hooked in his belt. "Sold him, boss. Low-performing just like you authorized."
Low performing? He was worth 6 figures. Show me the bill of sale.
Frank didn't blink. He pulled the ledger page from his pocket and handed it over. Eduardo read the number. His face went from disbelief to fury.
$5. You sold my champion for $5 to a child. This is theft. I am calling Martin.
He snatched his phone and dialed. Frank stood motionless, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. Within the hour, Martin Herrera arrived, briefcase in hand, his eyes already weighing the bill of sale like evidence. The legal trap was springing, and Frank's smile had finally died. Martin Herrera set his briefcase on the desk and did not sit down. He placed the letter and the $5 bill of sale side by side.
The authorization grants discretion only for low-performing horses. Valiente is a champion. This sale is voidable and reckless.
He was off his feed, lame, in the right four. I made a call.
You made a call? His last vet check was perfect. There are records, Frank. You didn't even call a vet.
This pattern meets the statutory definition of embezzlement by an agent. The district attorney will not look away.
He could feel the cell door already. His mouth went dry. Give me a chance. I'll find the boy. Buy the horse back. Make this right.
You have 48 hours. Then I sign the complaint, and you can explain it to a judge.
Martin closed his briefcase with a snap that sounded like a verdict. Frank walked out into the dusk, the paper still in his pocket, and the impossible task of finding a nameless boy in the desert. Frank drove the dusty back streets, asking anyone who'd listen about a barefoot boy leading a big bay horse. An old woman pointed east. The adobe stood alone, a pen beside it, Valiente tied to a post.
He got out and barked, "Kid, that horse belongs at the ranch. Give him here now."
Liam stood in front of the horse. I paid for him, $5. It's mine.
The door opened. An older woman stepped out, wiping flour from her hands.
Elena Cruz looked him up and down. Who are you?
Frank Castillo, foreman at Alvarado. The horse was sold by mistake. I need it back.
Her face went still. Castillo. What is your full first name?
Francisco, but nobody calls me that.
She pulled a photo from her apron. A young Frank, arm around a smiling woman. Color drained from his face.
She stepped inside, pulling Frank through the door. You, Francisco Castillo. Sit. My daughter Rosa died bringing that boy into this world. You vanished before she could even show you a sonogram.
11 years. He counted silently. He'd left Rosa a dozen summers ago. The boy was his. That doesn't change the sale. The horse belongs to the ranch. I'll take him back now.
You'd strip the only gift you ever gave your son? A horse you practically threw at him for $5?
The word. Your son hit Liam like a kick. He stared at the man who'd sold him the horse.
It wasn't a gift. I needed a sale. Any sale. I'll pay you double. $50. Just give me the horse.
Your money is as worthless as your word. Get out of my house, Francisco. The horse stays with the boy.
Frank walked out. The photo still lay on the table, a younger him mocking everything he'd become. He climbed into his truck, his hands gripping the wheel, the horse still tied in the pen, and a son he couldn't afford to know. Frank returned to the ranch office under a low moon. Eduardo and Martin were already there, patience gone.
Well, did you find the boy? Where is my horse?
Couldn't track him. Got away. Some street kid that vanished.
Then we call the sheriff. This is now a criminal matter. Castillo.
The word sheriff sent a cold blade down his spine. He had one last card to play.
He left the office and crossed to the equipment shed, where two ranch hands were loading a trailer.
I need you two for a quick job tonight. There's a horse that belongs here, and we're taking it back.
One man hesitated, but Frank's glare and a promised bonus silenced him. Frank climbed into the truck beside them, a coil of rope at his feet, and a plan darker than he'd ever made. The trailer hitched, the engine rumbled, and they rolled toward the adobe just before dawn. After Frank left, Elena couldn't sleep. She woke Liam and told him to get in the truck.
That man won't leave it alone. We're going to talk to the owner, Eduardo Alvarado.
The old truck rattled over dirt roads, headlights cutting the pre-dawn darkness. They reached the ranch gate just as the sky turned gray. Elena climbed out and shook the iron bars.
Wake up. We need to see Eduardo Alvarado. It's about his horse.
A ranch hand appeared, then fetched Eduardo, who strode out in a jacket.
Who are you, and why are you at my gate at this hour?
Señor Alvarado, your foreman sold your stallion to my grandson for $5. But there's more.
Eduardo's eyes narrowed. He signaled for the gate to open.
Then you'd better come in. We have more to this story than I thought.
Inside the ranch office, Elena laid the photograph on the desk between her and Eduardo.
This is Francisco Castillo, the boy's father. He worked for you 12 years ago, then abandoned my daughter.
Frank Castillo is your son's father. This changes everything.
Before Elena could answer, the sound of a truck engine roared outside. Frank had arrived. Frank burst through the gate with his men, only to stop cold when he saw Elena and Liam standing with Eduardo.
What is she doing here?
She's telling me about your son, Frank. The boy you sold a horse to for $5.
It's a lie. She's just trying to keep the horse.
Enough. I've seen the pictures. I've heard the dates. You are done here, Frank. Get off my property.
The ranch hands froze. The horse, still tied to the trailer, whinnied as if sensing the shift. Frank's world had just caved in. A ranch hand untied the stallion and led it back toward the barn. Liam watched, his chest heaving.
You are suspended without pay, Frank. The investigation will decide the rest.
Liam heard the word father echo. He turned to Elena, his voice cracking.
He's my father? The same man who sold me the horse?
Yes, and I'm so sorry, mijo.
Liam tore away and ran into the stable. Tears cut tracks through the dust on his face.
Martin Herrera appeared with a sealed kit. A DNA sample is required. Frank, open.
Frank opened his mouth. The cotton swab scraped his cheek, and he stared straight ahead. The swab secured, Frank walked toward the gate alone. His hat crushed in his fist. Behind him, the stallion stood again in its stall, and a boy pressed his forehead against the cold bars. Frank sat alone in a dim cantina. The photograph of Rosa now burned into his mind.
He remembered packing his truck 12 years ago, telling Rosa he'd be back in a week. He never was.
He walked to the adobe again, not to take the horse, but to face what he'd done. His knock was heavy, desperate. Elena cracked the door, her face hardening when she saw him.
Liam, your father is here. She stepped back, leaving the choice to the boy.
Liam appeared behind the screen, his jaw clenched, the same jawline Frank had seen that first day.
I am not here for the horse. I just need to say, I am sorry I wasn't there.
The boy stared for a long moment. Then he pushed the door shut with a slam that echoed.
I know sorry doesn't fix it, but you deserved a father, and I wasn't one.
Frank stood there a minute longer, then walked into the night, the weight of his choices finally pressing on his shoulders. 3 days later, Martin Herrera gathered them in the ranch office. The sealed DNA envelope had arrived.
The results are conclusive. Francisco Castillo is Liam's biological father.
Liam flinched as if the words had struck him. Elena's hand tightened on his shoulder.
This changes nothing legally, Frank. I am still filing charges. But I've spoken with Martin, and there's another way.
If you plead guilty, the court can impose restitution instead of prison. The ranch will transfer the horse to Liam and offer him a working student position.
A job? With school? How would that work?
I don't want anything from him.
What's the catch? How much time would I serve?
That's up to the judge. But a plea could mean probation. You'd have to sign the agreement now.
Frank stared at the paper on the desk. The weight of $5 had led to this. He asked for the night to decide. The night stretched long. Frank sat on the bench outside the barn, turning the choice over in his mind.
If I fight, this drags on for months. Liam gets nothing. The old woman was right. I've never given him anything.
By dawn, His hands were steady. He picked up the phone and called Eduardo.
I'll sign it. All of it. Just tell me where.
They met in the office. Martin slid the agreement across the desk, and Frank took the pen. His signature was the same one he'd put on the $5 sale, but this time it cost him his freedom.
He set the pen down. One thing. Before I turn myself in, let me see the boy one more time.
Why should I allow that?
Because he deserves to know the man who's paying for this isn't just a crook, even if he never forgives me.
Eduardo nodded once. The deal was sealed. Frank would face Liam before facing the judge. The same golden light that had watched the sale now fell on the adobe. Liam sat on a fallen log, his back rigid, waiting.
He's got Rosa's fire, even if he doesn't know it. Can I sit?
They sat. The quiet was heavy enough to hold.
I signed the deal. I'll be going away for a while, but Valiente will be yours, legally. And you'll work at the ranch. Learn the horses. I am not asking you to understand, just to take it. It's the only thing I've ever been able to give you.
A tear cut a clean track through the dust on Liam's face. He didn't sob, he just stared.
Goodbye, son.
He walked away, not looking back, until his shape was swallowed by the lowering sun. The next morning, Frank walked back through the ranch gate, a sheriff's car already waiting. Eduardo, Elena, and Liam stood by the barn as the sheriff snapped the cuffs onto Frank's wrists. Frank didn't resist. He met Liam's eyes only once, then looked away. At the county courthouse, Martin Herrera filed the plea agreement. The judge glanced at the restitution terms.
Frank's voice was low and steady. Guilty, Your Honor.
The judge accepted the plea and set sentencing. Frank was remanded into custody. Until then, as the bailiffs let him out, Frank saw Elena and Liam in the gallery. Sitting rigid, Liam's hand was in Elena's, but his eyes followed Frank until the side door closed. Frank was processed and placed in a cell. The metal door clanged shut. He sat on the bunk, staring at the barred window, the weight of $5, now measured in years. 3 weeks later, the judge brought down the gavel at Frank Castillo's sentencing. The sentence was 18 months with probation, and he approved the restitution. Valiente would belong to Liam Cruz. In the gallery, Elena pressed a hand to her mouth. Liam sat frozen, as if the words had not yet landed. After the hearing, Eduardo led the boy to the stable. The stallion stood in the aisle, brushed and gleaming.
He's yours now, not on paper, for real. You put in the work, Valiente stays with you.
I'll do it. I'll learn everything.
He took the rope in both hands, the same way he had that first day at the gate.
You'll start Monday. 2 hours after school, hard work, no shortcuts.
Liam nodded once. He didn't look at Elena, but she saw his shoulders square. The child who had walked barefoot onto the ranch now led a $90,000 horse toward the barn, and a future no one could have predicted. Weeks passed. Liam arrived before school, mucked stalls until his arms ached.
Eduardo watched from the doorway. He doesn't complain, not once.
Valiente's coat, once dulled by neglect, now gleamed like polished mahogany.
His hands had blistered, then calloused. For the first time, he felt like he belonged somewhere.
Elena visited on a Saturday, bringing tamales. She found Liam brushing Valiente with deliberate, patient strokes.
Your mother would be proud, mijo. And so am I.
In the training pen, Liam mounted Valiente bareback, gripping the mane as the horse trotted. Eduardo stood at the fence, arms crossed, and gave a single nod, the closest thing to praise he ever offered. The horse's white star blazed in the sun. Both had been discarded. Both had risen. That evening, Liam rode out onto the pasture alone, the golden light stretching his shadow, the ranch finally feeling like a future. A month after sentencing, Liam sat on the hard bench, the prison glass turning his reflection ghostly. Frank shuffled in, orange jumpsuit, and picked up the phone on the other side.
How's Valiente?
Good. His coat shines now. He remembers me every morning.
I heard you've been working hard. Eduardo told me. I am proud of you.
You don't get to be proud, not yet.
The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of the fluorescent lights.
I don't hate you, but I am not ready to forgive you either. I just need you to know that.
That's more than I deserve. You take care of that horse and yourself.
Liam hung up, pushed back his chair, and walked out without looking back. But his hand, for a second, flattened against the glass. Hours after leaving the prison, Liam saddled Valiente and rode into the open pasture. The sky painted in gold.
$5. That was all it took to change everything. A price too small to be real, too heavy to ever forget.
The horse's hooves beat a steady rhythm beneath him, a sound he'd come to trust.
My father didn't know he was selling me a future, and I didn't know I was buying a piece of him.
A quiet resolve settled in his chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a stubborn kind of peace.
I'll visit him again, not for him, for me. So I can look back and know I kept the door open.
Valiente tossed his head and whinnied, as if agreeing, and galloped toward the horizon. He leaned down and pressed his palm against the star on the horse's forehead. The boy who'd walked barefoot to a ranch gate now rode a champion into the sunset, carrying a name he was still learning to bear. Behind him, the $5 bill lay pressed in Elena's Bible, a relic of a crooked deal that had, against all odds, straightened into something like grace. A year later, the county fairgrounds shimmered with July heat, and the horse show announcer called Liam Cruz to the ring. He'd grown taller, his shoulders broader, but the same determined jaw set as he guided Valiente over the low jumps.
In his pocket, a folded letter. Frank's handwriting, reading about patience and second chances.
The course was clean. When the final jump fell away, the small crowd erupted. Elena stood at the rail, her hands clasped, tears streaming freely. Eso, mijo. Mijo. Eduardo, stiff as ever, gave a slow nod from the shade, a rare smile cracking his stern face. The judge pinned a blue ribbon to Valiente's bridle, and Liam dismounted to a swarm of congratulations. He pressed his hand to his pocket, where Frank's letter rustled, a promise that the door between them was still open. That evening, he rode Valiente onto a high ridge and watched the sunrise spill gold across the ranch. The boy who had once paid $5 for a champion no longer needed a price tag to understand value. He carried it in his blood, his work, and the quiet goodbye that had become a beginning.